Hello everybody. It's time for another live stream for Roasted the King's channel. It is raining out, so that's why I'm not going anywhere today as much as I would wanted to. Um, I'm gonna be limiting my videos in the next month because next month I'm going to be attending college. Um, I'm going into a trade school. I'm learning to be an engineer. Um, for my job pays for it all, so I'm actually good on working on that one. But the main thing today we're going to talk about. Last week I talked about the Jinn, which is an evil genie. Today we're going to talk about the hellhound, Cerberus. Let me go get my thing here. Hold on. Back in a second. Hold on. Where did I put it at? Hmm. Oh, here we go. Okay, here we go. Um, so we're talking about the hellhound Cerberus, who is actually a pretty cool dog. He's like a dog, but he guards the gates of hell. Um, his job basically is to keep all the people that died in hell, basically not letting them. Basically, his job is to make sure that they don't escape. Now, in this is Greek mythology, which I'm a big fan of. In Greek mythology, Cerberus, um, who's often referred to as the Hellhound of Hades, is a multi-headed dog that guards the gates of hell to prevent the dead from leaving. He's the offspring of the monsters Echidna and Typhon, and he's usually described as having three heads, a serpent for a tail, and snakes protruding from his body. Cerberus is primarily known for his capture by Heracles, which was the last of Heracles' 12 labors. Um, Now, the etymology of Cerberus' name is uncertain. Nobody knows how the name came to be. Ogden refers to attempts to establish an Indo-European etymology as not yet successful. Um, it's been claimed to be related to the Sanskrit word sabara, which is used as an epithet of one of the dogs of Yama from a Proto-Indo-European word Kerberos, meaning spotted. Now, Lincoln in 1991, among others, critiques this etymology. Now, this etymology was also rejected by Manfred Mayhofer, who proposed an Austro-Asiatic origin for the word, um, like the Norse, and beaks. Lincoln notes a similarity between Cerberus and the Norse mythological dog Garmer, relating that both names to a Proto Indo European root gur, meaning to growl, and perhaps with the suffixes m and b and r. Now, however, as Ogden observes, this analysis actually requires Kerberos and Garmer to be derived from two different Indo-European roots, Ker and Gur, respectively, and so it does not actually establish a relationship between the two names. Um, Now, though probably not Greek etymologies for Cerberus have been offered. Um, an etymology given by Servius, the late 4th century commentator on Virgil, but it's rejected by Ogden. It derives Cerberus from the Greek word Orborus, meaning flesh devouring. Another suggested etymology derives Cerberus from Cur and Barathu, um, meaning evil of the pit. Supposedly there's supposed to be like a pit of hell or like a Tartarus pit. They mentioned that in the Percy Jackson films and everything else like that. Now descriptions of Cerberus can vary depending on how you look at it and the number of his heads. Um, Cerberus was usually a three-headed dog, even though not always. Yeah, my hair is getting longer. Um, Now descriptions of Cerberus can vary depending on the number of heads. Now Cerberus was usually three-headed, but even though not always. Cerberus had several multi-headed relatives. His father was the multi-snake-footed Typhon, and Cerberus was the brother of three other multi-headed monsters: the multi-headed snake the multi-snake-headed monster called Hydra, Orthrus, the two-headed dog that guarded the cattle of Gurgon, and the Chimera, um, who had three heads, which was that of a lion, a goat, and a snake. And like these close relatives, Cerberus was the only one with the rare iconographic exception, multi-headed. Weird Core, yes. Hello. Weird Core wants a shout out. What are we giving you a shout out about? Um, in the earliest description of Cerberus, Hesiod's Theogony, which was written in the earliest description, like I said, okay, in the earliest description of Cerberus, Hesiod's Theogony, um, which was written between the 8th and 7th century. Lucas Ortiz, hi. Um, no, Hesiod's Theogony was written between the 8th century and the 7th century BC. He has it in his book that Cerberus had 50 heads, while um, while Pindar gave him 100 heads. Now, however, later writers almost universally give Cerberus three heads, like three heads on his head. The only exception to this is the Latin poet Horace's Cerberus, which has a single dog head and 100 snake heads. Now, perhaps trying to reconcile these competing traditions, Apollodorus' Cerberus has three dog heads and the heads of all sorts of snakes along his back, while the Byzantine poet John Tzetzes, probably based his own account on Apollodorus, gives Cerberus 50 heads, three of which were dog heads, and the rest being the heads of other beasts of all sorts. In art, Cerberus is most commonly depicted with two dog heads visible, but never more than three. But occasionally with only one. Now, on one of the two earliest depictions between 590 and 580 BC, a Corinthian cup from Argos, which was now lost, Cerberus is shown as a normal single-headed dog, but the first appearance of a three-headed Cerberus occurs on a mid 6th century BC Laconian cup. Now Horace's many snake-headed Cerberus followed a long tradition of Cerberus being part snake. Now, this is perhaps already implied as early as it is in Hesiod's Theogony, where Cerberus' mother is the half-snake Echidna, and his father is the snake-headed Typhon. Now, in art, Cerberus is often shown as being part snake. For example, the lost Corinthian cup showed snakes protruding from Cerberus' body, while the mid-6th century BC Laconian cup gives Cerberus a snake for a tail. Now, in the literary record, the first certain indication of Cerberus' serpentine nature comes from the rationalized account of if I'm going to say this wrong or not, Hecataeus of Miletus from 500 to 494 BC. Now I'm not sure if I said that name right, but he makes Cerberus out as a large poisonous snake. Now, Plato refers to Cerberus' composite nature. And the Euphorion of Chalcis, 3rd century BC, describes Cerberus as having multi-snake tails, and, presumably in connection to his serpentine nature, associates Cerberus with the creation of the poisonous aconite plant. Now, Virgil has snakes wreathed around Cerberus' neck. Now, Ovid's Cerberus has a venomous mouth, necks vile with snakes, and hair woven with the threatening snake, while Seneca gives Cerberus a mane consistent of snakes and a single snake tail. Now, Cerberus was given various other traits according to Euripides. Now, according to Euripides, Cerberus not only had three heads but three bodies, and according to Virgil, he had multiple backs. Now, Cerberus ate raw flesh, according to Hesiod, and had eyes which flashed fire, according to Euphorion. A three-tongued mouth, according to Horace, and acute hearing, according to Seneca. Um, now Cerberus' only mythology concerns his capture by Heracles. Sometimes Heracles' name is mispronounced Hercules, but it's actually pronounced Heracles. Now, as early as Homer, we learned that Heracles was sent by um, Eurystheus, the king of Tyrans, to bring back Cerberus from Hades. To bring back Cerberus from Hades, the king of the underworld. According to Apollodorus, this was the 12th and final labor that was imposed upon Heracles. In a fragment from a lost day, Perithos had attributed to either Euripides or Critias. Heracles says that although Eurystheus commanded him to bring back Cerberus, it was not from any desire to see Cerberus, but only because Eurystheus thought that the task was impossible. Um, you could claim anything's impossible, but it's actually not. Now Heracles was aided in his mission by his being by his being in by being his by being an initiate of the Eleusi, Eleusi, Eleusinian mysteries. Now Euripides has his initiation being lucky for Heracles in capturing Cerberus, and both Diodorus Siculus and Apollodorus say that Heracles was initiated into the mysteries in preparation for his descent into the underworld. Now, according to Diodorus, Heracles went to Athens, where Messias, the king of the son of Orpheus, was in charge of the initiation rites. While according to Apollodorus, he went to um, Eumol, um, Eumolpus and Eleusis. Now Heracles also had the help of Hermes, the usual guide um, to the underworld, because he was the messenger to the gods of the underworld, stuff like that. Um, as well as Athena. Now, in the Odyssey, Homer has Hermes and Athena as his guides, and Hermes and Athena are often shown with Heracles on base paintings depicting Cerberus' capture. Now, by most accounts, Heracles made his descent into the underworld through an entrance somewhere. Um, Artainaran, the most famous of the various Greek entrances to the underworld. Now the place is first mentioned in connection with the Cerberus story in the rationalized account of Hecataeus of Miletus, and Euripides, Seneca, and Apollodorus, um, and all have Heracles descend into the underworld there. Now, however, Xenophon reports that Heracles was said to have descended at the at the Archerusian Chersonesus near Pontica on the Black Sea, a place most loosely associated with Heracles' exit from the underworld. Um, Now, Heraclea, founded back in 560 BC, perhaps took its name from the association of its site with Heracles' Cerberan exploit. Um, while Heracles was in the underworld, Heracles met the heroes Theseus and Perithous, who were the two companions that were being held prisoner by Hades for attempting to carry off Hades' wife Persephone. Um, Along with bringing back Cerberus, Heracles also managed usually to rescue Theseus, and in some versions, Perithous as well. Now, according to Apollodorus, Heracles found Theseus and Perithous near the gates of Hades, and they were bound to the chair of forgetfulness, to which they grew and were held fast by coils of serpents. And when they saw Heracles, they stretched out their hands, as if they should be raised from the dead by his might. And Heracles was able to free Theseus, but when he tried to raise up Perithous, the earth quaked and he let go. Um, Now, the earliest evidence for the involvement of Theseus Now, okay, so the earliest evidence of the involvement of Theseus and Perithous in the Cerberus story is found in a shield band relief from 560 BC from Olympia, where Theseus and Perithous names are seated together on a chair and arms held out in supplication, while Heracles approaches about to draw his sword. Um, Now, the earliest literary mention of the rescue occurs in Euripides, where Heracles saves Theseus, with no mention of Perithous in the lost play Perithous, but both heroes are rescued. Um, Now, while in the rationalized account of Philochorus, Heracles was able to rescue Theseus, but not Perithous. In one place, Diodorus says Heracles brought back both Theseus and Perithous by the favor of Persephone. Um, but while in another, it states that Perithous remained in Hades, and according to some writers of myth, that neither Theseus nor Perithous had ever returned, but both are rescued in the fabulae of Hyginus. Um, Now, there are various versions of how Heracles accomplished Cerberus' capture. Now, according to Apollodorus, Heracles asked Hades for Cerberus, and Hades told Heracles he would allow him to take Cerberus only if he mastered him without the use of the weapons which he carried. And so, using his lion skin as a shield, Heracles squeezed Cerberus around the head until he submitted, um, which is never easy, especially for a hellhound. Now, in some early sources, Cerberus's capture seems to involve Heracles fighting Hades. Now, Homer's Iliad has Hades injured by an arrow that was shot by Heracles. A scholium to the Iliad passage explains that Hades had commanded that Heracles master Cerberus without a shield or iron, and Heracles did this by, as in Apollodorus, using his lion skin instead of his shield, and he made stone points for his arrows. But when Hades still opposed him, Heracles shot Hades in anger, um, and it's consistent with the no iron requirement on an early 6th century BC lost Corinthian cup. Now Heracles is shown attacking Hades with the stone, while the iconographic tradition from the 560 BC often shows Heracles using his wooden club against Cerberus. Um, Now Euripides has Amphitryon ask Heracles, "Did you conquer him in fight or receive him from the goddess, meaning Persephone?" To which Heracles answers, "In a fight." Um, and the Peripheros fragment says that Heracles overcame the beast by force. Now, however, according to Diodorus, Persephone welcomed Heracles like a brother and gave Cerberus in chains to Heracles. Now, now Aristophanes has Heracles seize Cerberus in a stranglehold and run off, while Seneca has Heracles again using his lion skin as a shield and his wooden club to subdue Cerberus. After which a qualifying Hades and Persephone allow Heracles to lead a chained and submissive Cerberus away. Um, Now Cerberus is often shown being chained, and Ovid tells that Heracles dragged the three-headed Cerberus with chains of adamant. Um, Now there are several locations um, which are said to be the place where Heracles brought up Cerberus from the underworld. Now, the geographer Strabo reports that according to the myth writers, Cerberus was brought up at Tainaran, the same place where Euripides has Heracles enter the underworld. Seneca has Heracles enter and exit at Tainaran. Now, Apollodorus, although he has Heracles enter at Tainaran, but he has him exiting at Troezen. The geographer the Pausanians tells us that there was a temple at Troezen with altars to the gods, and it's said to roll under the earth, where it was said that in addition to Cerberus being dragged up by Heracles, Semele was supposed to have been brought up out of by the underworld by Dionysus. Another tradition had Cerberus brought up at Herculea Pontica, the same place which Xenophon had earlier associated with Heracles' descent and the cause of the poisonous plant aconite, which grew there in abundance. Now, now Herodorus of Heraclea, um, and Euphorion said that when Heracles brought Cerberus up from the underworld at Heraclea, um, Cerberus vomited bile from which the aconite plant grew up. Ovid also makes Cerberus the cause of the poisonous aconite, saying that on the shores of Scythia, upon upon leaving the underworld, as Cerberus was being dragged by Heracles from a cave, and it was dazzled by the unaccustomed delight, Cerberus spewed out a poisonous foam which made the aconite plants growing there poisonous. Now Seneca's Cerberus too, reacts violently to his first sight of daylight. Um, Now enraged, the previously submissive Cerberus struggles furiously, and Heracles and Theseus, um, or Theseus, must together drag Cerberus into the light. Now Pausanians were the Pausanian reports that according to local legend, Cerberus was brought up through a chasm in the earth dedicated to Clement. Um, okay. Now in the earth it's dedicated to Clemenus, Hades, next to the sanctuary of at Hermione at Hermione, and in Euripides is on Heracles. Um, though Euripides does not say that Cerberus was brought out there, but he has Cerberus kept out for a while in the grove of Cathonia at Hermione. Now Pausanias also mentions that at Mount Lephistion and Bo and Boatoia, that no, like I said, I'm not sure if I'm saying these names right, was the statue of Heracles' Cherops with bright eyes, where the Boeotians said Heracles brought up Cerberus. Now, other locations which perhaps were also associated with Cerberus being brought out on the roads include Hierapolis, Thesprotia, and Messene. Um, In some accounts, after bringing Cerberus up from the underworld, Heracles paraded the captured Cerberus through Greece. Um, Euphorion has Heracles lead Cerberus through Medea and Argolis as women and children watch in fear. Um, and Diodorus Siculus says of Cerberus that Heracles carried him away to the amazement of all and exhibited him to men. Seneca has Juno complain of Heracles' high-handedly parading the Black Hound through Argive sites, and Heracles greeted by the lower rate crowd singing his praises. According to Apollodorus, Heracles showed Cerberus to Eurystheus as commanded, but after which he returned Cerberus to the underworld. Now, however, according to his excuse me, according to high to Shyshias of Alexandria, Cerberus escaped, presumably returning to the underworld on his own. Now who knows if that's true or not. Now the earliest mentions of Cerberus between the 8th and 7th century BC occur in Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey and Hesiod's Theogony. Now Homer does not name or describe Cerberus, but simply refers to Heracles being sent by Theseus to fetch the Hound of Hades. Now, with Hermes and Athena as his guides, and an possible reference to Cerberus' capture, that Heracles shot Hades with an arrow. According to Hesiod, Cerberus was the offspring of the monsters Echidna and Typhon, and was 50-headed, ate raw flesh, and was the brazen-voiced Hound of Hades, who fawns on those that enter the house of Hades, but eats those who try to leave. Now, Stesichorus who was born between the year 630 BC and 555 and died sometime around 555 BC, apparently wrote a poem called Cerberus, of which virtually nothing remains of it. Um, Now, however, in the early 6th century BC, lost Corinthian cup from Argos, which showed a single head and snakes growing out from many places on his body, was possibly influenced by Stesichorus's poem. The mid 6th century BC cup from Laconia gives Cerberus 3 heads and a snake tail, which eventually becomes the standard representation of what he will be known as throughout his lifetime. Um, Now, Pindar, who was born in 522 BC and died in 443 BC, apparently gave Cerberus 100 heads. Um, Naboklides, in the 5th century BC, also mentions Heracles bringing Cerberus up from the underworld with no further details. Um, Sophocles, born in 495 BC and died in 405 BC, and his woman of Trachis, he makes Cerberus 3-headed, and in his Odious, in his Oedipus at Colonassus, the chorus asks that Oedipus be allowed to pass the gates of the underworld undisturbed by Cerberus, and they called here the untamable watcher of Hades. Now, Euripides, who was born in 480 BC and died in 406 BC, describes Cerberus as a 3-headed dog and 3-bodied. And he says that Heracles entered the underworld at Tainaran, but he has Heracles say that Cerberus was not given to him by Persephone, but rather he fought and conquered Cerberus, for I had been lucky enough to witness the rites of the initiated, an apparent reference to his initiation into the Eleusinian mysteries. And it says that the capture of Cerberus was the last of Heracles' labors, but the lost play Perithos, attributed to either Euripides or his late contemporary Critias, has Heracles say that he came to the underworld at the command of Eurystheus, who had ordered him to bring back Cerberus alive, but not because he wanted to see Cerberus, but only because Eurystheus thought Heracles would not be able to accomplish this task, and that Heracles overcame the beast and received favor from the gods. Now, Plato, who was born in the year 425 BC but died in 348 BC, refers to Cerberus' composite nature. He cites Cerberus along with Scylla and the Chimera as an example from ancient fables of a creature composed of many forms that were grown together into one. Euphorion of Chalcis, during the 3rd century BC, describes Cerberus as having multiple snake tails and eyes that flash like sparks from a blacksmith's forge, or the volcanic Mount Etna. Now, from Euphorion, it also comes the first mention of a story which told that at Heraclea Point, Pontica, it's where Cerberus was brought out of the underworld by Heracles, and Cerberus vomited bile from which the poisonous aconite plant grew up. Now, according to Diodorus' now, according to Diodorus Siculus' 1st century BC, the capture of Cerberus was the 11th of Heracles' 12 labors, and the 12th and last being stealing the apples of the Hesperides. Diodorus says that Heracles thought it best to go first to Athens to take part in the. Damn it. Now, so his last was to steal the apples of the Hesperides. Now, Diodorus says that Heracles thought that it was best to first go to Athens to take part in the Eleusinian mysteries. Now, Musaeus, the son of Orpheus, basically, being at that time in charge of the initiatory rites, after which he entered into the underworld, and he was welcomed to like a brother by Persephone, and basically receiving the dog Cerberus in return. He received the dog Cerberus in chains, and he carried him away to the basement of all and exhibited him to all men. Now, Now, in Virgil's Aeneid, um, Aeneas and the Sibyl encounter Cerberus in a cave where he lay at vast length, filling the cave from one end to the other, blocking the entrance to the underworld. Now, Cerberus is described as a triple-throated with three fierce mouths, multiple large backs, and serpents writhing around his neck. Now the Sibyl throws Cerberus a loaf laced with honey and herbs to induce sleep, enabling Aeneas to enter the underworld. And so apparently for Virgil, contradicting Hesiod, Cerberus guarded the underworld against entrance. Later, Virgil describes Cerberus in his bloody cave, crouching over half-gnawed bones. Um, now in his Georgics, Virgil refers to Cerberus as having triple jaws agape, being tamed by Orpheus playing his lyre. Um, Now Horus, who was born in the year 65 BC and died in the year 8 BC, also refers to Cerberus yielding to Orpheus's lyre. Um, Now here Cerberus has a single dog head, which, like a Furies, is fortified by 100 snakes with a triple-tongued mouth, oozing fetid breath and gore. Um, now, Now Ovid between the year 43 BC and 1718 AD and 1718 AD, which is like Anno Domini and BC is before Christ, has Cerberus's mouth produce venom, and like Euphorion, he makes Cerberus the and it basically makes Cerberus the cause of the poisonous plant aconite. According to Ovid, Heracles dragged Cerberus from the underworld, emerging from a cave where it's fabled. Where the fabled plant grew on soil infected by Cerberian teeth, and dazzled by the daylight, Cerberus spewed out a poison foam, which made the aconite plants growing there poisonous. Um, Now Seneca in his tragedy Hercules Furens, he gives a detailed description of Cerberus and his capture. Now in Seneca's version, Cerberus has three heads, a mane of snakes, and a snake tail, with his three heads being covered in gore and licked by the many snakes which surround him. And with hearing so acute that he can hear even ghosts, Seneca has Heracles use his lion skin as a shield and his wooden club to beat Cerberus into submission, after which Hades and Persephone coiling on their thrones let Heracles. Now, supposedly Cerberus can hear ghosts. So Seneca has Heracles use his like I said, his lion skin and shield and his wooden club to beat Cerberus into submission, in which Hades and Persephone coiling on their thrones let Heracles lead a chained and submissive Cerberus away. But upon leaving, not much. But upon leaving the underworld, at his first sight of daylight, a frightened Cerberus struggles furiously, and Heracles, with the help of Theseus, who had been held captive by Hades but released at Heracles' request, drags Cerberus into the light. Now Seneca, like Diodorus, has Heracles parade the captured Cerberus throughout Greece. Now Apollodorus' Cerberus has three dog heads, a serpent for a tail, and the heads of many snakes on his back. Now, according to Apollodorus, Heracles' 12th and final labor was to bring back Cerberus from Hades, but Heracles first went to Eumolpus to be initiated into the Eleusinian mysteries. Now, upon his entering into the underworld, all the dead flee Heracles except for Meleager and the Gorgon Medusa. Um, Now, if you don't know Medusa, in Greek mythology, she's the one that had snakes for her heads, and if you looked her directly in the eyes, you would automatically turn to stone. Um, Now Heracles drew his sword against Medusa, but Hermes told Heracles that the dead are mere empty phantoms. Now Heracles asked Hades, here called Pluto, for Cerberus, And Hades said that Heracles could take Cerberus provided he was able to subdue him without using any weapons. Heracles found Cerberus at the gates of Acheron, and with his arms around Cerberus, though being bitten by Cerberus' serpent tail, Heracles squeezed until Cerberus submitted. Now Heracles carried Cerberus away and showed him to Eurystheus, then he returned Cerberus to the underworld supposedly. Now, in the apparently unique version of the story, which is related by the 6th century AD pseudo Nonnus, Heracles descended into Hades to abduct Persephone and killed Cerberus on his way back up. Now, who knows if that's true or not either. Now, the capture of Cerberus was a very popular theme going throughout ancient Greek and Roman art and culture. The earliest depictions date from the beginning of the 6th century BC. One of the two earliest depictions, a Corinthian cup, dated between 590 and 580 BC, but from Argos, and it's now lost because nobody knows what ever happened to it, shows a naked Heracles with quiver on his back and a bow in his right hand, striding left, accompanied by Hermes, and Hercules threatens Hades with the stone, and he flees, while a goddess, perhaps Persephone or possibly Athena, standing in front of Hades' throne, prevents the attack. Now, Cerberus, with a single canine head and snakes rising from his head and body, flees to the right. Now, on the far right, a column indicates the entrance to Hades' palace. Now, many of the elements of the scene, Hermes, Athena, Hades, Persephone, and a column of portico, are common occurrences in later works. Now, the other earliest depiction, a relief pithos fragment from Crete, dated between 590 and 570 BC, is thought to show a single lion-headed Cerberus with a snake open mouth over his back, being led to the right. A mid-6th century BC Laconian cup by the Hunt painter adds several new features to the scene, which also become a common in later on works. They basically depict Cerberus at 3 heads, a snake tail, and Cerberus' chain and Heracles' club. Now here Cerberus has 3 canine heads, and he is covered by a shaggy coat of snakes, and he has a tail which ends in a snake head, but he's being held on a chain leash by Heracles, who holds his club raised over his head. In Greek art, the vast majority of depictions of Heracles and Cerberus occur on Attic vases. Now, although the lost Corinthian cup shows Cerberus with a single dog head, and the relief pithos fragment apparently shows a single lion-headed Cerberus in an Attic vase painting. Although Cerberus is usually in the Attic vase painting, Cerberus usually only has 2 dog heads and not 3, as he's usually depicted as having. Now, in other art, as in the Laconian cup, Cerberus is usually 3-headed. Occasionally in Roman art, Cerberus is shown with a large central lion head and 2 smaller dog heads on the other side. As in the Corinthian and Laconian cups, and possibly the relief pithos fragment, Cerberus is often depicted as part snake. In Attic vase painting, Cerberus is usually shown with a snake for a tail, or a tail which ends in the head of a snake. Now snakes are also often shown rising from various parts of his body, including snout, head, the snout, the head, the neck, back, ankles, and paws. Now, 2 Attic amphoras from Bulsi. One was dated from 530 BC to 515 BC by the Bucky painter in Munich, 1493, and the other by the Endocetus painter, which is actually in the Louvre, F204. Now, in addition to the usual 2 heads and snake tail, it shows Cerberus with the mane down his neck and back. Now, another typical Cerberian feat of the Attic vase painting, basically it shows Endocetus, and Endocetus' amphora also has a small snake curling up on each of Cerberus's two heads. Now, who knows if this is all true or not? Basically, it's just a storyline. Now, besides this lion-like mane and the occasional lion-headed mentioned above, now Cerberus um, was sometimes shown with other lion features. A picture from 530 to 500 BC shows Cerberus with mane and claws. Now, okay. Now first century BC Sardonyx cameo shows Cerberus with a leonine body and paws. In addition, a limestone relief fragment from Tarato shows Cerberus with three lion-like heads. Now, during the second quarter of the fifth century BC, the capture of Cerberus disappears from Attic base painting. Now, after the early third century BC, the subject becomes rarer everywhere until the Roman period. In Roman art, the capture of Cerberus is usually shown together with other labors. Now, Heracles and Cerberus are usually alone, with Heracles leading Cerberus. Now, as early as the 6th century BC, some ancient writers attempted to explain away the various fantastical features of Greek mythology. Included in these are various rationalized accounts of the Cerberus story. Now, the earliest such story was back in the late sixth century BC, is that of Hecataeus of Miletus. In his account, Cerberus was not a dog at all, but rather simply a large venomous snake which lived on Tynerin, and the serpent was called the Hound of Hades, only because anyone bitten by it died immediately, and it was this snake that Heracles brought to Eurythesis. Now, the geographer of Pausanians, who preserved for us Hecataeus' version of the story, points out that since Homer does not describe Cerberus, Hecataeus Hecataeus' count does not necessarily conflict with Homer, since Homer's Hound of Hades may not in fact refer to an actual dog in itself. Um, the other rationalized accounts make Cerberus only to be a normal dog, um, according to I'm, I'm not gonna okay, they're saying Homer's Hound of Hades may not in fact refer to a dog at all. But other rationalized accounts make Cerberus only out to be a normal dog. Of course, he wasn't. But according to um, no, no, other rationalized accounts make Cerberus out to be a normal dog, even if he's not. But according to Palaphaetus, Cerberus was one of the two dogs who guarded the cattle of Gurion, and the other being Orthrus. Now, Gurion lived in a city named Tricranium, and Greek Tricarania, three heads, from which they both named Cerberus and Gurion um, came to be. Basically, they were raised around that area, born there. Um, now, um, now this is where Cerberus and Gurion came to be called three-headed. Now Heracles killed Orthrus and drove away Gurion's cattle, with Cerberus following along behind him. Molossus, a Messenian, offered to buy Cerberus Eurythesis, presumably having received the dog along with the cattle from Heracles. But when Eurythesis refused, Molossus stole the dog and penned him up and tied him up in a cave in Tynerin. Um, now, Eurythesis commanded Heracles to find Cerberus and bring him back. But after searching the entire um, Peloponnesus, Heracles found where it was said Cerberus was being held. He went down into the cave and brought up Cerberus. After which it was said Heracles descended through the cave and into Hades and brought back Cerberus, or brought up Cerberus too. Now, in the rationalized account of Philocchorus, in which Heracles rescues Theseus, um, per, um, Perithous is eaten by Cerberus. Now, in this version of the story, um, now now in this version of the story, Adonisius, i.e. Hades, is the mortal king of the Molossians, with a wife named Persephone, and he's and the daughter named Kor, another name from the goddess Persephone, and a large mortal dog called Cerberus. With them, all his suitors of his daughter were required to fight, and after having stolen Helen to be Theseus's wife, Theseus and Perithous attempt to abduct Kor for Perithous, but Adonis catches the two. Um, um, Now, in the rationalized account of everything else, basically, if anybody fell in love with Hades' daughter, they had to fight Cerberus, and that was gonna be a thing that nobody was gonna win. Um, now, um, now it's a second century AD Greek known as Heraclitus, paradoxographer, not to be confused with the 5th century BC Greek philosopher Heraclitus. He claimed that Cerberus had two pups that were never away from their father, which made Cerberus appear to be three-headed. I don't know about that. Now, Servius, who's a medieval commentator on Virgil's Aeneid, derived Cerberus' name from the Greek word Creoborus, meaning flesh devouring, and held that Cerberus symbolized the corpse consuming earth, with Heracles' triumph over Cerberus representing his victory over earthly desires. Now, later on, the mythographer Fulgentius allegorizes Cerberus as three heads, as representing the three origins of human strife. Nature calls an accident, or the nature strife. Um, Now, and drawing on the etymology as Servius points out, um, and symbolizing the three ages: infancy, youth, and age group, and which then enters the world. Now, the Byzantine historian and the bishop Eusebius wrote that Cerberus was represented with three heads because the positions of the lion of the sun above the earth are three: rising, midway, and settling. Um, um, Hold on here. Now, the later Vatican mythographers repeat and expand upon the traditions of Servius and Fulgentus. All three Vatican mythographers repeat Servius's derivation of Servius's name from Creoborus. Um, the Second Vatican mythographer repeats nearly word for word what Fulgentus had to say about Cerberus. Now, while the Third Vatican mythographer, in another very similar passage to Fulgentus, it says more specifically than Fulgentus himself That for the philosopher, Cerberus represented hatred, and his three heads symbolizing the three kinds of human hatred: natural, casual, casual, and accidental. Um, now, um, Now the second and third mythographers note that the three brothers Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades each have a tripartite insignia. According to associated Hades, three-headed Cerberus, with Zeus's three forked thunderbolts and Poseidon's three-pronged trident. Now, while the third Vatican mythographer adds that some philosophers think of Cerberus as the tripartite Earth. Um, um, Now, in the constellation, um, or actually, hold on, I think I just skipped over something here. Okay, so now Virgil, um, some philosophers think of Cerberus as a tripartite Earth, like Asia, Africa, and Europe, but this Earth swollen up bodies send souls to Tartarus. Now, Virgil describes Cerberus as ravenous, frame rabida, um, and a rapacious Cerberus became proverbial. Um, proverbial. Um, Now, thus Cerberus came to symbolize um, Avarius. And so, for example, in Dante's Inferno, Cerberus is placed in the third circle of hell, which guarded over the gluttons, where he rends the spirits, flays, and quarters them. And Dante, perhaps echoing Cerberus' association of Cerberus with Earth, has his guide include Virgil. Um, let's see here. Now, in Dante's Inferno, perhaps echoing, he actually echoes Cerberus' association of Cerberus with the earth, and has his guide Virgil take up handfuls of earth and throw them into Cerberus' rapacious gullets. Now, in the constellation Cerberus, introduced by Johannes Hevelius in 1687, Cerberus is drawn as a three-headed snake held in Hercules' hand. Previously, these stars have been depicted um, as a bunch of the of the tree on which the I wish that they didn't. But it's held in Heracles' hand. Previously, these stars had been depicted as a branch of the tree, which grew the apples of the Hesperides. Um, um, I think it's still windy and raining out there. That's why the reason why I'm staying home. Um, Now, in 1687, in a constellation, Cerberus was introduced by Johannes Hevelius. Cerberus is drawn as a three-headed snake held in Heracles' hand, and previously these stars had been depicted as a branch of the tree on which grew the apples of the Hesperides. But in 1829, um, French naturalist Georges Cuvier gave the name Cerberus to a genus of Asian snakes, which are commonly called dog-faced water snakes in English. Um, Now, the Serbian hard rock band Kerber, formed in 1981 by members Goran Sepa, Tomislav Nikolic, and Brand Jumping, the band is named after is named after Cerberus. In 1988, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, known as MIT, developed Cerberus, a computer network authentication protocol named after the three-headed dog that guards the gates of hell, Cerberus. Um, in 2023, um, European um, heat waves, the most significant of which was named Cerberus's heat wave, and it was brought out, which it brought the hottest temperatures ever recorded in Europe. Um, Now down here, I just reached the ending of my stories, of my stuff. But you have your choices of what else to read. You got Hellhound. You also got the list of Greek mythological characters. You got the Shavara and the Shayama, which is Hindu mythology. Dormak, which is part of whatever Hellhound, Amit, and the Kadajo or Kadaho. I'm not sure how you say that. So there is a lot of Greek mythology characters. If you're interested in knowing more about this, um, let's see what we got here. I'm waiting on the last three tax forms I need. I got one tax form. Once I get my tax forms, then I'm good to go, and I can get everything set up. Um, but I'll be so glad once that's done and over with. Then I could sock that money away. Um, I'm also going to be getting paid for my college classes. So once I start taking my college classes, my job UPS has a grant fund money, which so every time I complete a class, I'll get like an extra 500 on top of my UPS checks. Um, so we'll just go from there. And I'm actually happy that I'm actually taking initiative to go to college because I've always talked about wanting to go, but never got the chance to really go. So that now it's better to do it. It's better to do it now than to not go at all. Um, I will take recommendations. Let me know what you guys. So the next week, I'm gonna be doing another video. Probably on whatever. Just let me know what you guys let me know what you guys want me to do it on, and we'll go from there. Give me some suggestions on that. And you guys can subscribe to the channel Rusty the King. I also have another YouTube channel called RBW King. Um, and you guys can subscribe there at your own leisure. Now, I do want to give this story to drag out the video a little bit. On Wednesday, I was at UPS. After I got off of work, I decided I'm going to stop by the CRCP office, which is the office, and those are the people that help you get into college, based on what your skill level is and what you want to learn. Um, Basically, I'm going into plant engineering, which is a trade. Basically, you study the use of electronics, welding, um, machinery, and once you get done with the training, I will be a certified um, plant engineer. You could also do 2 years of plant engineering as for a bachelor's degree, if you choose to do it that way. I'm probably going to start with the certificate first, and then when I get enough money saved, then I can go and do the bachelor's degree. Um, but I went there yesterday, so I talked to the lady in the office at CRCP, and she was at the CRCP, and she was asking me what did I want to go to school for, what did I want to study. I said something about mechanics and welding, and she's like, okay, we got the plant engineer program if you're interested. I said, okay, let me try that. And then she asked me what college was close. Um, I had to look it up myself. Moraine Valley is the closest college to me. It's a community college, so it's a 2 year college. When I went to the college on Wednesday, I couldn't log in because their computer systems were down, so I couldn't create an account up front where you had to go. And then I was constantly getting the runaround, so it kind of frustrated me because I went to the help desk and I was telling them um, that I wanted to register for classes, and they asked me, "Did you know what classes you want to take?" And I said no. Then they sent me upstairs to advising to go talk with advising, and then advising says go talk to admissions, and then admissions says talk to registration. Then I kept getting the fucking runaround, but um, but Moraine Valley has a cafeteria which I ate at for the first time that I was there, and they had. Let me see if I can find it on here. Um, because I had this on Wednesday and it was actually not bad, but let me see if I can find it. Um, don't know if I have it up here or not. This might be it here, but let me see. Okay, so it is not up here. So it might be on the other one. So it might be on this one. Let me see here. Yeah, this right here. This is what I had when I went to the college. So that silver tray, little container is the loaded fries that I got from the cafeteria at the school, and then I had a bottle of Pepsi, and they also were having a lunar year for like Asian people, for like the Asian Chinese people, and so we had fried rice and a little half of an egg roll, and that's what I had for my lunch while I was waiting for the computers to come up. Um, the school is pretty big, so if you don't know your way around, you'll get lost. My dumbass Uber driver picked me up, and he dropped me off at building H, which is not the building I needed. The buildings are listed by letters with the letters A B C D E F G type thing on them. Um, and so he drops me off at building H, which is the fitness center, and I had to try to find where building S was because building S is where I had to go to register and get my ID. Eventually, I'm gonna have to get my ID for the school. Um, but he dropped me off at the wrong building, so I had to walk, and it took me about an hour and a half to almost 2 hours before I found the right building that I needed to go to. Um, and then because the computer systems are down, I just felt like okay, I'll just wait this out and hopefully something will come back online. Eventually, about 4:30, I think some of the stuff came back online, but not all of it. And so in registration they had to put my name in manually by typing it in on their side, um, and so they did it that way. Um, but I don't have to pay for my college courses. UPS is paying for all of it. Um, so I don't have to pay. I don't have to pay for my books. I don't have to pay for any of my classes. UPS covers it all. Um, and so and then when I got done with everything then about 4:30, I had placed a second Uber ride to get home, and the guy couldn't find out where I was at. Um, Now I don't know if Uber or Lyft even has it like this. Supposedly from where you put your Uber ride in at, they're supposed to see you. They're supposed to see you from there, and that's where they're supposed to pick you up at. I don't know if there's like an actual center thing on that shows you where they're at. Um, Eventually, the guy did find me, but he drove around the parking lot for 5 or 10 minutes before he eventually found me. And then I went home and ate, and then went to sleep. Um, and their cafeteria was pretty huge. Next time I go, I'll probably be coordinating on a couple of the YouTube channels my videos. And I will say this: when I was at the college on Wednesday, there and I'm a guy, so of course I'm gonna notice it, that there was a lot of hot women that were going to that college. Um, and so that's not surprising that you would see that. Um, Let me know what you guys thought about this video before I go, and cut this short, because I'm gonna take a little nap. Um, so let me know what you guys were thinking about the video and what you guys want me to do next for my next video. Also, make sure to smash the like and subscribe button for the YouTube channel, Rusty the King. Also, if you're interested, check out my other YouTube channel, Rusty the King, like Rusty the King and RBW King. Check them both out. Um, Let me know what you guys think about both of them, and I will be back next week for another video. Hope you guys enjoyed.